Today we will discuss Mother Tongue by Amy Tan. Amy Tan is a Chinese-American author best known for her novel The Joy Luck Club. As a child, Tan was unhappy with her Asian appearance and other cultural traits that marked her out from her American peers. Later, as a teenager, she discarded everything that was Chinese and imitated American habits, in spite of her mother's disapproval. Okay, let's start the essay. Tan says that the power of language is in the way it can evoke an emotion, a visual image, a complex idea, or a simple truth. Language is the tool of her trade. First, she talks about the reason for writing the essay. In a formal meeting, she became aware of the English she uses with her mother is different from the English she uses in formal setting. She was talking to a group of people about her writing, her life, and her book The Joy Luck Club. Suddenly she realizes that one major difference that made the whole talk sound wrong. My mother was in the room. She used the proper formal standard English which she learned from her school and through books, but at odds the way she spoke at her home with her mother. Then, she gives another incident in which she considered the English she uses. She was walking down the street with her mother and she used the more clipped, informal English she naturally uses with her mother and her husband. It has become their language of intimacy, a different sort of English that relates to family talk, the language she grew up with. That informal ungrammatical English is her mother tongue. Many people who speaks to her mother say that they can partially understand what she is saying, and many of them opined that they couldn't understand anything as if she is speaking pure Chinese to them. But to Amy Tan, her mother's English is perfectly clear, perfectly natural. Tan calls her informal language as her mother tongue. That was the language that helped to shape the way she saw things, expressed things, made sense of the world. According to Tan, it was very difficult to find a term to describe the style of English her mother used. Many of the terms such as broken or limited are too negative and shows that how her English is imperfect. The society has a notion that if someone's English is limited, their intellect is also limited. So, her mother always received negative attitude from others. As she was growing up, Amy Tan was ashamed of her mother's English. Tan believed that her mother's English reflected the quality of what she had to say. Because her mother expressed them imperfectly, her thoughts were also imperfect. Tan shows plenty of evidence to support the fact that people in department stores, at banks, and at restaurants didn't take her mother seriously, didn't give her good service, pretended not to understand her, or even acted as if they did not hear her only because her English was not perfect. The author argues that understanding language goes beyond standardized tests, which provide an incomplete assessment of someone's knowledge. Tan acknowledges the profound influence of language that cannot be fully captured by a superficial exam. Consequently, she asserts that her mother's language, even though it may be perceived as unrefined, reflects her true English proficiency and intelligence, which is far greater. Tan's mother, who is an immigrant in America and speaks English as her second language, has recognized the limitations of her English skills. To cope with the negative attitudes people may have towards non-native English speakers, she has even had her daughter make phone calls on her behalf, aware that her daughter's fluency in English would command more respect. The intended readership of Amy Tan's mother tongue consists of individuals who may not be aware of the mistreatment faced by non-native English speakers in a society that requires them to educate others about tolerance. Tan aims to enlighten her audience about the challenges that fluent English speakers may not fully grasp by sharing her mother's encounters with those who belittled her for her imperfect English. The author discusses the hardships and biases faced by non-native English speakers, challenging society's tendency to unfairly label them as less educated. In the passage, the author describes an incident at the hospital where her mother, due to her broken English, was not treated with the courtesy she deserved. The hospital staff appeared to be less helpful, and their mishandling of her CAT scan request further complicates her situation. This example illustrates how non-native English speakers encounter unique challenges, like this hospital's lack of assistance, which specifically target their group. In contrast, when the author, speaking perfect English, intervened on behalf of her mother to find the CAT scan. The doctor's response was markedly different. The doctor showed kindness and a willingness to help, offering assurance that the CAT scan would be located. This contrast highlights the disadvantages faced by non-native English speakers, who often struggle to earn respect and consequently receive subpar service, as demonstrated in the hospital scenario. Tan opines that there is a significant number of Asian American youngsters are likely pushed towards careers in math and science instead of English literature. However, Tan, known for her rebellious nature and desire to challenge stereotypes, went against this trend. She opted to major in English during her college years and launched her writing career as a freelance writer. It wasn't until 1985 that she ventured into fiction writing. After some initial struggles to find her unique style and voice, she started crafting her stories with her mother in mind as the ideal reader, even sharing drafts of her work with her.
Understand.
Tan drew inspiration from multiple forms of English, including her mother's broken English or the simplified English she used when conversing with her mother, the diluted Chinese her mother spoke, and her mother's inner language that conveyed emotions. When her mother remarked that her writing was easily understandable, Tan recognized that she had achieved her goals as a writer.
Hey, Amy, so easy to understand your new work.
I'm glad you found it easy to understand. Thank you for your feedback, Mom.
The author's aim is to enlighten her readers about the importance of respecting broken English as a valid form of fluent expression. She highlights that in contemporary society, many people unfairly perceive broken English as a sign of imperfection, leading to unfair judgments about a person's character based on their language. However, the author argues that such judgments are flawed because the use of fractured or broken English doesn't imply a lack of well-formed thoughts in the speaker's mind.